Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Matthew Shiner podcast. The last episode, which looked at and this is episode number 50 of the podcast. Um, there have been 50 episodes of this podcast. If you're looking at YouTube's number, it'll say 49 because, as I said in a previous episode, there's one less episode here on YouTube than there is on my Spotify. So this is episode number 50. And I think this is something that kind of relates back to this podcast. And episode number 49, the one about the Washington state law, Father Leo actually uploaded a video the day after I uploaded mine about the same topic. His was, I think I started watching his, but I didn't finish it, so anyways, this episode is going to look back kind of at episode 47, which episode 47 itself was a look back at episode number 38, which was Be the Change. This one is not going to be about that same topic, because obviously episode 47 gave a good look back at that video with some different information. So if we fast forward a little bit to the Trent Horn stuff where he talks about Christian content creation, if we go towards the end, he looks at the letter of the Holy Father, Pope John Paul II, now Saint John Paul II, he looks at his letter to the artists. And so in this episode, we're going to be taking a look at the letter to artists. So Trent Horn talks about we need to, in our works, especially for apologetics in his case, it needs to be a work of art. It needs to be something we pour our heart into. We need to give it our full attention. We need to make it good art. And if we think about art, we probably think about, designs, art, and images, things like that. Art is much more than creating pieces of artwork. Such as here I have the Sistine Chapel pulled up to show, because Trent Horn mentioned this in his video. It was one of the pieces of art I thought about for this. And as we see, it's a beautiful piece of art. The Sistine Chapel ceiling, as you see, it talks about that. But the entire chapel is really multiple pieces of art all together. Because it's not just one piece of art. The ceiling is one piece of art. It's one huge piece of art. But there's also all these images around the chapel and behind the chapel wall, behind the altar wall. So art. The artist image of God the Creator. And I'll skip ahead. What is the difference between creator and craftsman? The one who creates bestows being itself. He brings something out of nothing. Ex nihilo sui et subjecti, as the Latin puts it, and this, in the strict sense, is a mode of operation which belongs to the Almighty alone. The craftsman, by contrast, uses something that already exists, to which he gives form and meaning. If you think about this, the Sistine Chapel itself, it's a piece of artwork. Without the artwork in it, the Sistine Chapel is a work done by artists, by craftsmen, that is, by sculptors, by different people to bring together a chapel. And on top of that, Leonardo da Vinci, right? Da Vinci was the one who did... Sorry, Michelangelo. I keep saying Da Vinci. Michelangelo was the one who painted the Sistine Chapel. And so his artwork was an artwork on top of an artwork because the form was given to the chapel, and on top of this form, Leonardo da Vinci gave meaning to it. This is a mode of operation peculiar to man as made in the image of God. So, the craftsman, that God therefore called man into existence, committing him the craftsman task. Through his artistic creativity, man appears more than ever in the image of God, and he accomplishes this task above all in shaping the wondrous material of his own humanity and then exercising creative dominance over the universe which surrounds him. And I don't know if John Paul II will talk about this, so I'll leave it towards the end. So the artist is one, that is why the artists, more conscious they are of their gift, are led to the more to see themselves and the whole of creation with eyes able to contemplate and give thanks and to raise to God a hymn of praise. This is the only way for them to come to a full understanding of themselves, their vocation, and their mission. To raise to God a hymn of praise, sing to the Lord a new song for Easter marvels. That was the beginning of the homily of Pope Leo in his mass with the cardinals. Sing to the Lord a new song for Easter marvels. Above all, they are more conscious of their gift. Again, God gives us all various gifts, and that's kind of what I was thinking about with this video, God gives us different gifts. And so some people are skilled at painting or sculpting, while others are more skilled at music. Music is another form of art. And different artists, because they're all different types of arts, there's, of course, music and physical artwork like that, but there are different kinds of gifts to which we are given, and everything we do, we should give our, as John Paul II says, artistic creativity. So man not only shapes his life, as John Paul II says, but he also is called to see their gifts and to use them towards the whole of creation. And so that's really what we want to talk about with artists. We want to talk about giving form to not only our lives, but also to what is around us, especially in regards to that. And so all of these things are gifts. So the special vocation of the artist. Not all are called to be artists in the specific sense of the term, yet as Genesis has it, all men and women are entrusted with the task of crafting their own lives. In a creative sense, they are to make a work of art, a masterpiece. We are called to make a work of art, a masterpiece out of our own lives. And that ultimately comes in conforming our lives to God, in following Him, and, forming our lives around that. The artistic vocation in the service of beauty. The artist and the common good, art and the beauty, art and the mystery of the Word made flesh, are fruitful alliance between gospel and art, the origins, the Middle Ages, humanism and the Renaissance, towards a renewed dialogue in the spirit of the Second Vatican Council. The Church needs art. Does art need the Church? An appeal to artists, the creator's spirit and artistic inspiration, the beauty that saves. And so those are all the sections here. I just wanted to skip through and look through the sections. Above all, fruitful. The one thing I want to look at is towards the renewed dialogue in the spirit. The Church needs art. The Church needs art, not only in the strict sense of artwork like the Sistine Chapel here, but also art such as music, such as here he says it here. In order to communicate the message entrusted to her by Christ, the Church needs art. Art must make perceptible and as far as possible attractive the world of the Spirit and of the invisible of God. It must therefore translate into meaningful terms that which is in itself ineffable. If we think about the mosaics and artworks and the stained glass windows, those are all forms of preaching the gospel in art. When we look at those stained glass windows, they were designed to be the poor man's gospel. They were designed to be something that merely by looking at, we could understand the gospel. We could look at these stories of history. A lot of, such as the cathedral in my diocese, I believe the one side is all stories from the Bible, from creation to the resurrection. No, I don't. I think I take that back. The windows are of the Apostles' Creed, so they give all the different articles of faith. And then some other places have stories that tell the entirety of creation, from Adam and Eve to the resurrection and to the preaching. So and other artwork too. Artwork not only serves as images of different saints, but it also serves to tell a story. So art can tell a story with either words describing from a person or merely just something visible to be seen. So the Church has need especially of those who can do this on the literacy and figurative level, especially literacy. And that's the other thing. Art is not merely physical artwork such as a painting or musical artwork, which we'll talk about in a minute, but it is also writing. It can be writing. It can be using that. And above all, as Trent Horton puts it, art can also be used in the form of YouTube, in the form of videos, in the form of social media posts. That's art, too. So art is not only, physical art that can be painted or sculpted, or art of architects like Pope John Paul mentions next. It's also the work of musicians and of writers, too. Art, the Church needs art because the Church and people rely on it. We're very physical people. We like that physicality. We like to see, we like to touch, we like to feel. So a lot of people work best with physical seeing, not necessarily just words, but seeing. And a lot of people who work well, they either can express and understand things well in art by doing, or understand it well in art. Does art need the church? The church therefore needs art, but can it also be said that art needs the church? The question may seem a little provocation, yet a little like a provocation. Yet, rightly understood, it is both legitimate and profound. Artists are constantly in search of the hidden meaning of things, and their torment is to succeed in expressing the world of the ineffable. How then can we fail to see what a great source of inspiration is offered by that kind of homeland of the soul that is religion? Is it not, perhaps, within the realm of religion that the most vital professional questions are posed and answers, both concrete and definitive, are sought? So, above all, the church needs art because it needs art to express to people. That's what I would say. But artists need the church because they need something to express. It's something that can well be understood in expression by the faith. So, an appeal to artists. This is what Trent Horn talks about. Of course, art being beautiful, art that saves, and the Creator Spirit, of course, coming to the Holy Spirit for inspiration and guidance in our work. So, in an appeal to artists, with this letter I turn to you, the artists of the world, to assure you of my esteem and to help consolidate a more constructive partnership between art and the church. Mine is an invitation to rediscover the depths of the spiritual and religious dimensions which has been typical of art in its noblest form in every age. It is with this in mind that I appeal to you, artists of the written and spoken word, of the theater and music, of the plastic arts, and the most recent technologies in the field of communication. I appeal especially to you, Christian artists. I wish to remind each of you that, beyond functional considerations, the close alliance that has always existed between the gospel and art means that you are invited to use your creative intuition to enter into the hearts of the mystery of the incarnate God, and at the same time into the mystery of a man. So above all, art in all its forms, as he mentions here, not just the physical art, but the written art and theater, music, and plastic arts, and the technology arts, which again, these are all artworks which Trent Horn talks about, especially technological art. And so it's important to understand that that we as people have always sort of used art. We've always sort of used our skills towards this. Music and artwork have been a part of human history for the longest time. We have early cave paintings that show how important art was. And we have not necessarily records, but we know most likely that music and vocalization was important. Even until more recent times, people have used horns during hunting to signal different things. And that we can see was probably a part of the world for a long time. And that was how people were able to live and survive. So art is a necessary thing to which humans find the way to express themselves, not only in a most meaningful and spiritual way, because we see even primitive religions of times and formed spiritualities of the early times. They have a sort of truth to them in seeking in seeking higher power, in seeking almost a spiritual realm. Although they might not be truly correct, they do seek the truth, and they seek to explain it in similar ways. They seek to explain it in artwork and in music and in many different ways. And so art is an important thing for the church, but the church also needs art. So that is how it goes. So art is important, and we all have an artistic ability. Whether that be an artwork of physicality, that art of painting or sculpting, or an art of writing, however it might be, we all have talents and gifts from God, and we have to use those gifts for the betterment of the church and for the world. And that kind of goes back into the being the change, but it also goes into our vocation of where are we called to be, where does God call us, and the skills which God gives us that can help us not only in our vocation, but also in the skill of artwork, of helping reveal God to man, but bringing man to God. And so that is important, and that is why artwork is important. That's why John Paul II wrote this letter to artists, to help to bring them to the church to rediscover the spiritual and religious dimensions of artwork that have been present in its noblest forms in every age. Artwork is important, not just the physical artwork of paintings, of sculpture, and things like that, but all of the arts. We need to share these arts and to have them benefit not only the church, but the people who look at them and make them. So God bless, and I will see you next time.